Before we begin, please be advised that this show may contain some adult themes and language that may not be suitable for all listeners. Now, onto our show. Welcome to the Sip and Saga Society, where we cover histories, mysteries, and overall weird-ass shit. As always, we have Nevada and Christina with us. But before we begin, I have some announcements. So we will be cutting back to 2 episodes a month until the rest of the year. One of us is going to be doing a lot of traveling, but we will be hitting some extra weird episodes for the rest of the year to make up for it. Also, keep an eye out for TikToks and Reels because I have been working on that. So if you've been wanting to see our faces during recordings, you'll have that opportunity soon. Are some real gems in the recording vault that I don't let out very often. So I'm sure y'all will love them once I finally get them out there. So now, what are y'all sipping, Christina, Nev?
Girl, you guys saw this the other day, but I'm drinking that coffee vanilla stout again. It's super good. It's from
Oh,
a
it's like
brewery.
it's like a beer, coffee beer.
Yeah, so it tastes like a vanilla coffee drink and it's a stout. You will hate it, Tina. It tastes
I'm
like a stout.
I love a good stout.
Stouts are my favorite.
Chris, what are you drinking?
so I got the poppy, the grape one.
That's what it is, Nev.
Yep. And then because you said something about it, Karina, and we just happened to have it in our house.
Shut up. Oh, I love that.
I was rereading back through the messages and I was like, and I looked at Zach literally, it was yesterday.
That's funny.
They didn't have like what he normally gets. And he was like, I'll just get this because I drink it too. And then you said that, and I looked at Zach and I was like, babe, you have to give me one of your beers for
That's
the
hilarious.
podcast.
Do you
Okay,
say
so
it Coors or Coors?
I say
Coors?
Coors.
Okay.
I say Coors,
It's
but Zach
Coors.
says Coors.
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 Zach's
Okay,
fancy.
so the episode for today is about the rugby team who flew across the Andes and crashed. I was trying to think of a mountain themed beverage, and the only one we could think of was Coors because they have the mountains on them. I did not want to drink Coors because I have standards that I will not break even for this podcast. Okay, so I was looking up the official drinks of Uruguay because the team was from Uruguay. The official drink for the country is yerba mate. And as we
Yerba
all know, I
mate.
don't love the yerba mate. So I was
That
like,
Oh.
is so funny.
I know. I was like, of course
Yeah,
it
I did.
is.
Yeah.
So what I ended up drinking, which thanks, Christina. I'm glad that you are doing the service for the community. It has mountains on it, and I feel like that's the only thing. And you would think there'd be more mountain themed beverages. There were not. I was real bummed.
There
No,
aren't, are there?
no, there was not a ton of them. And I was hoping there'd be like Mountain Goat Brewery or something. Nothing. So what I ended up doing, and this story is going to be a little unhinged because it's me. We were looking up like beverages that were
Mountain Dew.
Uruguay. No, I didn't do Mountain Dew because we already did Mountain Dew for Radium Girls, but not really. So they make Clarico, and it is a Uruguayan sangria that is drank at celebrations, and it's pretty common in Uruguay. So it's specific to the country type of sangria, right?
Hmm.
But for some reason, I didn't want to go buy fruits to make the sangria. Christina, your face is like, what the fuck? So, so I got a bottle of like a white sangria, and I added a tropical fruit punch liqueur to it because I was like, well, that's what's sangria if not fruit and alcohol. It's a fruit punch. And so then I got home and I was like, what fruits do I have? I had some frozen berries and I had some grapes, and I was like, all right, we'll just shove it all together. And so that is what I did. I just
Does it taste good?
I don't know. I was waiting till this moment to drink it. So I let it rest for 2 hours because the instructions for the sangria did say chop off the fruits. So I just poured the little shot of fruit liqueur in there, fruit punch liqueur, and then I added more fruits and then I let it rest for 2 hours. Christina, your face is giving me okay. So yeah, I followed the instructions. I just didn't add
I'm
fruits.
just trying to imagine you doing all of this beforehand.
That sounds like when I'm like
How does
trying to
it
follow a
taste?
recipe.
It's not bad.
Yeah, I believe it.
I feel like it tastes the way you think it's gonna taste. It's just like extra fruity wine, I guess. It's kind of good. I kind of like it. And it was funny because my friend was with me and he was like, "We have to let it rest for 2 hours. The instructions say." And I was like, "We gotta follow the instructions." But yeah. And also we for some reason we're real hung up on the fact that um that there were bananas in this sangria curacao.
Wait, did you put bananas in yours?
I didn't. I just did fruit punch.
I feel like that would be awful, like consistency wise.
I think you just let it soak, but you don't eat the bananas.
Oh, so you strain it?
Mm-hmm. You just let all the fruit sit in there.
Hmm.
That's what sangria is. But I was too lazy, so I added fruit punch like an adult.
Good, good.
Yeah, I'm healthy. We'll see how this goes. Anyway,
Oh, I was gonna tell you, Zach said what's cool about these cans is the mountain is blue, right?
yeah, because it's cold, Christina.
Well, yes, but as comes to room temperature, it will be silver.
Yeah,
So that it indicates, like Zach said, that what did you say? It was the perfect temperature. Like when it's blue, it's like the perfect temperature to drink it because it's.
Cold.
it's
And so I
it,
thought that was super cool because he like had it and he was drinking it and he was like, "Yeah, you see how it's blue?" And then later he showed it to me and it was like silver. And I was like, "Oh, magic.
Christina, what the fuck is this
The
wizardry?
magic behind a beer can." Hi.
Anyway, these are all fun beverages. I really want to try Nev's.
Oh, I'll
Mm,
I
send you.
don't know if I do because she knows me and she said I would not like it, so I trust her.
I trust
I'll
that.
send you guys some. Can you send alcohol in the mail?
I don't know.
Let me hear about am I gonna be sad?
Probably. Okay,
Okay. Okay, I'm ready.
are you ready? It's gonna be sad.
A roller coaster of emotions, I feel like.
Okay, so the book I chose as my source for this story was Miracle in the Andes by Nando Parrado. I chose this as my source because it was a first-hand account of the events, and I wanted to keep the human aspect and wanted to make sure that we didn't forget that these people were like human beings that were going through a very hard experience. I think that when we hear these stories, like for me, I'm not going to pretend that this is not something that I've thought about, and you kind of take it like very lightly, but this was a very insane experience. I just could not imagine going through it.
I'm kind of curious on how I will take this story, only because, like you said, like you, people normally take things at face value. You know what I mean? Like, oh,
Hmm.
like this is just a, story, whatever. But then, like, as you're telling me, I mean, obviously, it's like these are real people that had this real experience. So it's like, I'm gonna have to like put myself in like their shoes and kind of, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
see it from that perspective. So, um, I'm very interested on how this is going to go.
So this incident has inspired several films, books, television series ranging from 1993's Alive to Showtime's show Yellow Jackets, and recently Netflix put out a movie called Society of Snow that recounted the harrowing months on the mountaintop. Mountaintop. Oh my God, words are hard. And honestly, the other day I was like, oh, I can watch this movie, get a couple different insights on it. Since I was in the middle of the research, I could not watch the movie. It felt like it was going to be too emotional for me. So I don't know how I'm going to feel throughout this whole thing. I feel like it's a really good story, and I do feel like it's worth telling. The flight was on a Fairchild twin-engine turbo that carried a rugby team that was on their way to an exhibition match against a top Chilean squad. So it originated in Montevideo, Uruguay, with the goal of reaching Santiago, Chile. There were 45 people on board, including 4 crew members, a pilot, co-pilot, mechanic, and a steward, and the team was accompanied by family, friends, and other supporters of the team. So the plan was to fly nonstop, which would take 3.5 hours. But after a few hours of bad weather, they were forced to put down in a small colonial town of Mendoza, east of the Andean foothills. Basically, the weather got bad and they had to stop. So they landed in this tiny town, they explored, and they had to stay the night. And then at 1 p.m., they meet back with the pilot at the airport. The pilot and the co-pilot hadn't decided if they wanted to keep going through the weather or just go head home. The weather reported that turbulence was pretty bad. The pilot spoke to another pilot that had just flown back through there, and he was feeling more confident that he could make it across. So the issue was that in the afternoon, the warm air rises from the Argentinian foothills, meeting the frigid air above the snow line, creating instability. So you know how like the reason that tornadoes happen in that time of year is because we have the cold air at the top, the warm air at the bottom, just rising up and meeting each other in the middle, combining and creating chaos, essentially.
Yeah,
Except
that
this
hit my
time,
house in May.
exactly. So, but this time it's you're going through the mountains. It's
You're in
warmer,
an airplane
you're in an
and you have no
airplane.
control.
It's the 1970s. You
How
have a radio.
terrifying.
I know. So the
That
pilots
is,
knew. Oh, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. That's a freaking terrifying. I'm sorry. Like, I'm afraid of a lot of things, but like plane turbulence and like crashing into the ocean are a big
Oh
one.
yeah, that I could not.
Mm-mm.
So, like, the idea, I don't know, that alone would make me throw up and want to die.
Right. But I feel like we're thinking like this not as kids who are on their way on vacation. You know what I
Mm-mm.
mean? They're like early 20s, they're young, they want to go on their trip to go do whatever. And so, but the issue was, right, like if we go this way, we're at risk for all of this turbulence. And the pilots knew it was a very dangerous time to fly because the winds are unpredictable. And it's not a, I mean, it's not a huge plane, but regardless, like you are this tiny plane going through this mountain. But the issue was they couldn't stay there because that Fairchild plane belonged to the Uruguayan Air Force and the laws of Argentina forbade any foreign military aircraft from staying on the Argentinian soil for longer than 24 hours. So they were meeting that 24-hour cap. They couldn't stay there any longer. So literally their options were, are we going home or are we going to keep going on this trip? Oh my God.
Fuck that government. Honestly, like, there should be a clause if there's weather involved.
Right. And if it isn't there for, I feel like if it's not there for military purposes, why did they have to, if it was just a rented plane?
Bunch of
So
college kids.
yeah. So these young men are really pissed and they're like the reason they were having that struggle was obviously it is a pretty big deal. Like, are we flying home? Are we doing this? And all the guys on the plane were like, the team was getting frustrated and they were at risk for losing their vacation. And so they kept calling the pilots timid and they told them, we hired you to take us to Chile and that is what you want you to do. We are going. We paid you to do this. They jeered and whistled at the pilots. They teased them and questioned their competence. Nobody knew for sure if the behavior influenced the behavior of the pilots and the decision that they made. But after deliberation, Ferradas, the pilot, announced that they would continue their way through the Andes to Santiago and make their way onto the trip. So they finally departed the airport at 2:18 p.m.
Ugh,
They
I hate
jeered
peer
them.
pressure so much.
They
And
jeered
that's
them.
so
They
mean.
said,
Like,
no
Yeah, they
balls.
literally, yes, they were like, you're too timid, you're
like
weak.
that they, what is it? What did you say? They not challenge, but like they question their incompetence. Like,
Hmm.
my goodness, like I
Have
got
you
a
never
freaking
flown a
license to
plane?
fly this. Like, you drive it if you want to go so bad.
Oh,
You
you don't know
drive
how
it.
to fly a
You do
plane in a
it.
storm? Oh,
Ooh,
But
if I was the pilot and
you
when that
catch my
moment happened,
hands.
that moment of tragedy, I would have been like, who's incompetent now? As we're going down, as we're
I
descending.
told you so.
Ain't
no,
nobody listen to me in this damn plane. Like,
I'll be
there
like,
was not to, I know this is a tragic tale, but there was some guy that was like, I told them, I
uh-huh.
knew
I
not
You
to
told
know,
go.
you
yeah.
so. Somebody
Mm-mm.
breaks their leg. That's what's gonna happen. I don't know if that I'm foreshadowing. I watched that Hulu series where it's like the soccer girls crashed in the random mountains and they end up like crazy stuff happens to them or whatever, you know.
Hmm.
There's like a witch that follows them back. It's a whole
Oh,
thing. But anyway, like one of the girls breaks her leg, and it's like the pilot would be standing there, like, I told you so. I told you we
That's
should
so
have done
messed
this.
up. Remember when I told you? And look at you now. I like to do that to Evan where I'll be like, I didn't say anything. I wanted to do this, but no, we needed to do this other thing.
Yes,
Amazing, I'm still married.
felt that.
So they were looking through so they're on the plane and they're flying out and they're watching these mountains soar. Like, when you're flying out, you could see the landscape and it's growing. And they're
Yeah.
looking at these mountains and they seem to form a colossal fortress wall. And so they learned in school that the Andes was one of the most extensive mountain ranges in the world, running the length of South America from Venezuela in the north to the southern tip of the continent. So it literally takes up all of South America. The Andes are also the second highest mountain range on the planet, with only the Himalayas being the highest. From the plane, Nando saw that the mountains sprawled as far as the eye could see, even though they were miles away. Their height and mass made them seem impossible to go through. The region between Santiago and Mendoza was one of the highest in the whole chain and home of some of the tallest mountains in the world. The mountains were well above the Fairchild's maximum cruising altitude of 22,500 feet. I was like, how does one say that? Imagine
So
being
if
on a mountain so tall that not even the plane can make it up that high.
so, where were they supposed to originally fly if not through the Andes?
So they're going to fly through the Andes, but they're going to go south and go through a small little pass. Yeah, literally. So the pilots had to chart a course 100 miles south of Mendoza. So where they had stopped, they had to go south through a smaller area called Planchon Pass, a narrow corridor through the mountains. So it would be low enough for them to go through.
Uh,
The flight should take about an hour and a half, making it to Santiago before dark. The Andes temperatures were routinely dipping to 35 degrees below zero.
been there, sister.
35 degrees below zero? Oh God, no.
Welcome to South Dakota.
I'm not going there. I love you, but no. You got 2 months where I will visit you. You have the same 2 months that the people in New York and Chicago have.
Fair.
Yeah. Nando said that he saw no color in the mountains, just patches of gray and black. There was no softness, no life, only rock and snow. So, who were the people on the plane? So, the plane was a collection of rugby players and their friends, as well as family and supporters. They were rambunctious on the plane. Like while I was reading the book, they were like playing, like throwing balls around and running around the plane. And I was like, it's amazing that there were
Shocked.
not any more injuries before this. So
I'm
the
not
team,
shocked.
nope, the team was called the Old Christians and they were from Montevideo and they were one of the best rugby teams in Uruguay. They traveled as friends who had been through years of learning and training together because they were all in this game and this team. And like, when you all have the same common goal, you have a lot of camaraderie and friendships. And they had known each other since they were in school and they had been doing rugby under these Christian brothers, like monks. Hmm.
Okay,
And
okay.
yeah, I was like, okay, cool. And that's why the team was called the Old Christians Club because they were from the Christian brothers.
Le Christian Brothers.
So they joined the National Rugby League in 1965 and they established themselves as the country's top team. They were encouraged by success and they began to schedule matches in Argentina. And then in 1971, they had traveled to Chile. After having fared well against the Chilean national team, they decided to return in 1972, the year that they flew out, this year that they end up crashing. The plane was full of friends, but also Nando's family was there with him, his mother Eugenia and his sister Susie. So like the only one left at home, I think, was the dad and one of the other sisters. But it was his mom and his sister that were with him on this plane. So the Planchon Pass, they finally reach it. And at this point, right before they go through it, Nando's friend Panchito comes by and he's like, hey, can we switch seats? Because I want to sit by the window and look out the window. So they're looking out the window and there's a lot of thick fog. And that's when the stewardess comes by and they're like, hey, there's about to be some turbulence. You need to sit down. You need to put your seatbelt on. So the plane starts dipping sideways. And they felt four sharp bumps as the belly of the plane skilled over pockets of turbulence, which I think is always so terrifying when you're like, bam, bam, and you're like, oh crap, there's not enough seatbelts on this plane right now. So the plane dropped several hundred feet, bouncing and sliding in the turbulence. I felt Panchito's elbow on my side. Should we be so close to the mountains? He said. The engine screamed as the pilots fought to keep the plane from dropping. Oh, so the middle part, like the inside of the plane is called the fuselage. So I'm going to use that when I'm referring to like the wreckage of the plane for the foreseeable future. So the fuselage began to vibrate violently, and I saw open sky above me. Frigid air blasted my face. And that is the last thing he remembers. So when the plane crashed, Nando was knocked unconscious for 2 nights. And when he woke up, he had asked about his mother and his sister, but nobody would say anything to him. They would come by and they would give him water, but they would say nothing to him. Eventually, one of his teammates, Gustavo, told him that his mother was dead. And so were his best friend Panchito and Guido, and many others from the flight.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, that's sad.
His sister was alive for now, but she was badly injured. We were a group of untested boys who had never in our lives truly suffered. So in the book, it goes into more of their history and where they came from, but they were pretty much like upper middle class and they went to a private Christian college. They all really had never gone through anything super terrible. They had never, that's why he says, we had never suffered in our lives. Few of us had ever seen snow. What magic would carry us home? And like if you live in a tropical town, you don't have experience with any of this stuff.
Oh,
Mhm.
yeah.
You've never suffered, you've never been hungry.
Hmm.
The sun was setting, and as the light dimmed, the air became even sharper. The night was absolutely dark with a cold that was ferocious. The cold was a predator they had no protection against. We shivered uncontrollably, and time froze. They got up, their clothes was frozen stiff to their bodies, and they walked like old men. The body of the plane had rested on a snow-packed glacier on the eastern slope of a massive mountain. Nothing in the place welcomed human life. The cold tormented us. The thin air starved our lungs. The sun was unfiltered and it blinded us while blistering our skin and lips, which I think is the worst thing. I mean, other than a lot of the things that are going to happen, but like you're getting sunburnt and you're not even warm.
Yeah, like it's not enough to give you any
Like,
kind of comfort.
right? It's just hurting you. The
Yeah.
sun is just hurting you. So what had happened was that the plane dropped several feet. The pilots gunned the engine in effort to climb, and they managed to raise the nose of the plane just a few degrees, preventing a straight, like, head-on collision, but it still slammed into the ridge at the point where the wings meet the body of the plane. The wings broke off and plunged into the mountain. The tail section was lost and fell away, and everyone sitting behind Nando on the plane was lost. So, like, imagine like you're sitting here and everyone behind you is gone. So they lost that section of the plane. There was blood everywhere, and all that could be heard was moaning and crying. A few of the boys were not injured. Roberto and Gustavo, and they assessed the survivors. Arturo, Alvaro, and Pancho all had broken legs. Enrique had a 6-inch tube impaled in his stomach, and his friend Zerbino, Christina, your face is killing me, yanked the tube out of Enrique's intestines. And then and the intestines came out. So he's like, oh, this tube is in your tummy. Let me pull it out. And then his intestines came out. Yes, you're not supposed to pull out if you have an impaled object in your body.
Ever. You just
No.
stabilize it.
Uh-huh. Honestly, I don't know if they would. I know he wouldn't get any help. So I don't know if that would be the worst thing for him to just, I don't know. But yeah, you're
I
not
don't
supposed
know.
to. At home, you're not supposed to be taking anything. If you stab yourself, do not take it out. Yeah, I don't know what the best course of action would be in that situation. You're already on a
Drink it.
mountain. You're not making it to the
That's,
hospital.
well, I don't know. Stabilizing it still would probably be the best option from my wilderness first aid
No, for sure.
survival
It's
course.
right, but I don't feel like your wilderness survey. I guess it is, but like
I'd be horrified to see my intestines.
intestines. I think it depends on what your end goal is. If you know you're not going to make it and you're just going to die, do you just want it to go faster? Or do you want to try? I guess if you think help is coming, then
Yeah.
yeah, you're going to wait. You want to wait.
I believe in
But
manifestation and optimism here.
I feel like I would want to be optimistic, but I don't know because I've never been in this situation. But I would
Yeah.
assume I'd be optimistic. I like to think so.
I feel like you'd be like, I don't want to die.
I'd be pissed, I think. Anger would fuel me.
I would be pissed if I saw my own intestines. I think that would be the worst way to die. I don't want to see my own organs.
I don't think you should see organs. So yeah, I agree with you. I would be like, I think if I saw my organs, it would be that would be like the straw camel situation. That would be too much. Like I can handle the crash, I can handle the starving. These things should not be outside. Why am
Yeah.
I seeing them?
Yeah, I would see that and then I would die from a heart attack because I'd be panicking.
Shock.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd be done.
Hmm. So most of the survivors had only suffered minor injuries, but the pilot had died and the co-pilot was awake but gravely injured. The radio was dead. And so this was spring. This was a spring vacation for them because it's in South America. It's October, but it's spring. So they hadn't packed for snow, only light summer clothing
Oh,
because they weren't expecting to be in the mountains.
yeah.
So based on when they left, one of the guys, Marcelo, guessed that the plane had crashed around 3:30 p.m. and it would be around 4 before officials would confirm that the plane was missing. At earliest, rescue helicopters would not reach them until 7, and that's like at the earliest. And nobody was going to fly into the Andes at night, so they were like, we're going to have to stay the night. So they had to figure out how they were going to prepare the space to be the warmest and the safest overnight. So they had the plane left. They still were in the plane, but it was missing the other half, the half butt part. And so they use snow and luggage to create a wall of luggage, and they shoved snow in it to create a barrier so that when the wind came through, it would be sealed instead of having, I mean, it was still drafty, but it was keeping most of the wind out of the space.
Very smart. Very,
Hmm.
Yeah,
I don't
I
think I would have
agree.
thought about that. I would have just been like, good luck. Hope it works. Out of the 45 passengers on board, there were 5 known dead at the crash site. 8 were unaccounted for. 32 people were still alive at the crash site. They removed the cloth
Oh,
cover.
wow.
I know. I was surprised by how many were still
Well,
alive.
because whenever you were like the back half, or like, you know what I mean? So in my head, I'm
Hmm.
like, oh, there's everyone. You know what I mean? Like, that's
I
what I
guess it
thought. I was like,
depends.
everyone's gone. Like,
Just me.
yeah,
Just me and this guy. So,
imagine being a soul survivor. That would be fucking terrifying.
that'd be really hard.
oh, that would be really hard. And there's so many people,
Yeah.
and you were the only one.
Survivor guilt.
Oh, they do have it for sure. So they removed the cloth coverings from the seats to use as blankets. That's so sad. Those cloth coverings on those plane covers are on those plane chairs is like nothing. The blankets were thin, but they knew that they had to do everything possible to keep warm and survive. When the morning came, their spirits began to rise because surely now they would be rescued. And that would be the worst of their ordeal, just staying alive overnight. Susie was still alive in the morning, but others had died during the night. Both the pilots and most of the crew were dead. No one was around to help. No one had any knowledge of the mountains. Leaders emerged amongst the survivors. The credit for their survival in those early days goes to Marcelo Perez, whose leadership saved many lives. From the moment they got there, Marcelo responded with courage, foresight, and decisiveness. Without his rescue operation and pulling out the injured from the seats and building a wall, everyone would have died that first night. He forced everyone to keep busy and brought up their spirits. So, like, people would just be sitting there wanting to do nothing, but they were uninjured. So he's like, we got to prepare. We're staying tonight. We got to put all these suitcases over here. We got to move the dead. We have to help you know, people that are injured. We have to do stuff. You can't just sit around and hope that help shows up. So he gathered everything edible that could be found in the suitcases in the cabin. So they found chocolate, candies, nuts, crackers, fruit, wine, whiskey, and that was it. That's all they found. And so Marcelo rationed the food, and the rations were, oh my God, I'm just thinking, how many did I say were left?
42? That wasn't
32.
right. 32.
32. So there's 32, and we have some chocolate, candies, nuts, crackers, fruits, wine, and whiskey, and he's having to split it up amongst all of those people. The rations were small, but it was a ritual that gave them strength. So every day they'd all show up and be like, all right, let's take our peanut M&Ms. all one of them.
Your little half sip.
I know. In the early days, they believed that the rescue was their only chance of survival, and we had to believe this. Even as the days passed and no rescue arrived, he would not let us doubt that we would be saved. So, I mean, like that, I think that morale has a lot to do with.
You have to have a mascot. Once you stop believing in yourself, you're gonna die.
Yeah, because then you're literally manifesting your dying
Yeah,
Yeah,
every second of your
exactly.
life. hmm You're literally like, it's already over. On the eighth day, Susie changed and she stopped breathing, and he could do nothing to stop it. To his little sister. So he's sitting there. So, like, the whole time he was awake, he was just hugging his sister, and his mom was already dead.
yeah.
I
Oh,
embraced her with all my might without the fear of hurting her because, she
She's
was
dead.
still warm. I didn't allow myself the luxury of tears. And he says this over in the book, but he talks about how he like hears this voice, and I'm sure we all have that where you have that voice in your head that's like always saying things to you. Or is that just I
Hmm.
don't know. Anyway, and
Yes.
so here's the voice in his head telling him, you can't cry because you're gonna waste salt and waste moisture. You don't
Yeah.
have that luxury. You can't let
Yeah.
yourself cry. And so the whole time he forced himself not to cry because
Yeah.
they couldn't afford to waste it.
Damn.
We dragged Susie to the spot where the other dead were buried. Their frozen corpses were clearly visible with their faces only covered by a few inches of snow. In my old life, the loss of my sister would have brought my existence to a standstill and left me emotionally staggered for months. I could not afford the luxury of grieving. My love for my father was the only thing that kept me sane, and time after time I would calm myself by reaffirming the promise that I had made at Susie's grave to return to my father. Like, I
Damn.
know. After Susie's death, 27 survivors remained. More than a week had passed, and still the rescuers had not found us.
Damn.
I know. It's very sad. I told you.
Was this before black boxes existed, or did they not have a black box in the plane?
So you can have a black box, but that doesn't mean it goes back to anybody. The black box is like you find that box and you can listen to what has happened in the plane, and it's like waterproof, so,
Oh,
but it doesn't like report back anywhere. And
I
this
thought
was
it was a GPS.
I don't think it is, because usually if they don't find that black box, they're unable to tell what happened on the plane. That's
Hmm.
what they use it for. I'm like
Oh,
pretty sure. Yeah, like
I
because
thought it was
sometimes
like,
that's the only thing you can find
oh,
because
I thought it was like find your iPhone for
no.
planes.
And it's also the 1970s, so I don't know if they had that technology. I'm sure they had radar like while they're flying, but I don't think and they had radios,
Yeah.
but I don't think they had like just GPS the way that we have it now.
Hmm.
Because I feel like now, yeah, you definitely would be able to find some area where the plane is, or their phone stopped tracking at a certain place or whatever.
Yeah. You probably have a better chance with the phone than you do with the planes these
Exactly.
days.
Oh my God, yes. What's that one plane? Fucking Boeing with their walls coming off or whatever.
With their bullshit.
I have so many thoughts
um,
on Boeing. I'm just not even gonna.
when you said that, like he was like still the research team has not came, is that him assuming, or is this like obviously this is him telling, telling the after story, but like were they actually actively looking for them, or is he
They were,
assuming that they? Oh, okay, okay,
no, they were actively looking for them. They did find we will come back to this in a little bit. Well, maybe not till the next section, but yeah, they are actively because I also had this guess. I was like, what if nobody's looking for you?
yeah,
Sounds so
yeah,
mean. But like, you think you're getting help? Like you're just assuming a lot, aren't you? But that's the other thing is that they did have the plane was rented from the military. So they had to know where it was going. They had people waiting for them for that competition.
that's true, yeah.
And so there were reasons for them to believe that they were missing. And also, like, Nando's dad is like, hey, where's my whole entire family?
Poor
They're all
Nando.
gone. I know. Freaking, I think the dad's name is Seller. And yeah, it's it's rough. I was telling Christina this yesterday, it gets worse. They go through so much.
Yay.
They go through so much. I was like, these people are never gonna catch a break. I think I sent you that one. Anyway, So, Liliana Methal was the only female survivor left after Susie died, and she and her husband were both on the plane, and they both had survived, and they had left their four children at home to come on this trip. Yeah,
Damn.
they had left them with their grandparents. At first, the men insisted that she sleep in the warmest place on the plane, and then she told them she would not accept special treatment and went to sleep near the rest of them. They said she was everything you wanted a mother to be: strong, loving, and brave. Everyone dealt with the mountains differently. Everyone lived in fear and expressed those fears in a different way. They dreamed of home and prayed for miracles, and as they languished in the shadows of the fuselage, tortured by fears of dying, with their eyes dull and hollow, they were becoming ghosts already. So some of the boys had already lost the will to live, and they were not injured, but they could not summon up the will and the fight to live. And so the ones that were like fighting to survive would yell at them, like, move, do something. We bossed them, but we never despised them or abandoned them. The horrors we faced were overwhelming. We made sure that they had enough to eat and clothes and would tell them to live for one more breath. All of us were living for one breath at a time and struggling to find the will to endure. So they were just trying to make it. And I mean, they're mad at them and I get that. But like what I liked about it was that they were like, it's hard and we know it's hard. And sometimes it's hard to get that energy to like make it or want to keep making it instead of just letting it take over.
Oh yeah,
On
because when you're in a time or in a time when you're in a situation like that, I mean, it's easy to be like, this is it.
we're done.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was rough. I'm just like,
Mm-hmm.
dang. It was early spring, but very wintry still, and blizzards raged around the clock, keeping us trapped. On clear days, the mountain sun would beat down, and we spent as much time outside as possible just soaking up the sun. They had cigarette lighters and could have lit a fire, but there wasn't a lot of combustible materials on the mountain. They burnt almost $7,500 in paper money, found scrap wood, and the brief luxury of warmth was only enough to make the cold worse. They spent time huddling, and they tried to be careful about frostbite and would massage their extremities and like beat them up just to keep them warm, like mash their hands and
Like the
whatnot.
circulation going and yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Eat their meat.
Ugh.
Sorry. I didn't even mean it like that.
But literally, yes.
That's how I'm trying to be.
The greatest threat we faced in the earliest days was thirst. The body dehydrates 5 times faster at that altitude because there's lower levels of oxygen. So your body has to breathe a lot faster in order to draw enough oxygen. And every time you breathe in and out, you're breathing out moisture and you're losing moisture. So you're just
Plus
dehydrating
side,
quicker. Plus side, what?
the whiskey that they're drinking gets them drunker quicker because of the lack of oxygen.
I'm a survivor.
So their
Just sloshed on
ratios,
the side of the mountain.
their little cups were doing them good. I don't
They
know.
were getting like a lick of whiskey. What do you think is happening? They're like, oh, I'm so fucked up. They're not eating anything. They have nothing.
See, exactly.
Mm,
Plus side.
you gotta find one anywhere.
That's what I'm saying. The glimmers matter.
They really do. We were surrounded by millions of tons of frozen water. The problem was making the snow liquid and drinkable. How is that snow beer, Tina?
Crispy. Crisp and cool and light
And light and drinkable and not frozen?
and drinkable.
You're sipping a Coors.
Ugh.
And I don't have to beat my meat.
Are they able to start fires? Because I feel like that would solve a lot of their problems if any of
Nev,
them
I
knew how to
just
start a
told you
fire.
about the fires. Literally, I said they could start fires, but there was not a lot to burn. They burned 7,500 in paper money. They burned all their scrap wood, and they would just make it worse because they would burn and they'd be like, oh, look how warm I am. And now it's extra cold because I was warm for 2 seconds.
Because they made their fires too big.
They did not
That's
make
what I'm
big
hearing.
fires. They had nothing to burn.
Mm.
They went too hard, too fast.
Most men do. That's all I'm saying.
There was only one girl left. I could see it. I mean, but even then, they didn't really have a ton. Like, I can't, I didn't really think
Did they
about it till,
start burning bodies?
no,
They're not using all their resources.
they could have worked harder. I think
Can you
you eat a
imagine the
lot more
smell?
mm,
Wait,
barbecue.
what?
Barbecue.
Okay, Tina, my question is, do you care about dead bodies burning when you're trying to survive? I don't think so.
I think you need too much fuel to fight to start a people fire.
Not if you start with just a finger.
Slowly add to make it grow. Guys, it's time for the leg. Throw it in.
That's what I'm saying.
I
I'm
don't
not
know.
here to victim blame. I'm victim blaming.
Nev said, I'm trying to survive.
I'm victim contemplating is what I'm doing.
They could have cut their hair. I don't
I feel like
know.
they needed the hair for warmth. I feel like
Not on their dead people. The dead people's clothes. I'm just saying.
I don't know if they ripped their clothes off of them, but also the clothes was frozen too. Everything
I'm
is
just
frozen. I don't
I'm
think
just
they had
saying
enough fuel to light people on fire. So
I would do anything for you guys for us to survive. So just remember that.
I would let you eat me, which we're about to
Listen,
get to.
see that I knew cannibalism would happen,
It has to happen. That's why we're
obviously.
telling the story before spooky time. It's September 1st. It's time.
Or spooky time.
It's spooky
One
time.
gust of air, one fallen leaf.
Spooky time.
Spooky.
Anyway, so now we're drinking water, but it's frozen. They had no stoves, no efficient way to melt the water. So they
Hmm.
started scooping handfuls of snow into their mouths. I don't know if you've ever drank handfuls of snow. It's
Yes.
not great. It hurts your face.
It should melt though as it gets in your mouth.
Right, but you're using that energy to warm your mouth and then it gets frozen and dry.
Yeah, you're right.
So their lips were cracked, bloody, and raw from the cold,
Yeah.
and it became agony every time they tried to drink. They
But you
found
need
that
the
when,
water to survive, so
yep,
it's such a double-edged sword.
Cycle.
Ugh, that is so
Oh.
vicious. Yeah.
they can't win.
Mm. So how long has it been since they've crashed now?
It's been like a
They're
couple days. Like it's not been a long time. I think it's been a
oh my
week.
oh my God, that is a long time.
It, I'm just gonna tell you right now, it's 72 days on the mountain at minimum.
Oh, my mental would
How
have just
bad of a fucking survivor party, like finding party? What are they called? Search party.
or search party. Yeah.
How bad?
How
Yeah.
how bad are you at finding people?
I like how you
Apparently
echoed.
not good.
We also have to remember they are on a mountain.
That is
They are
fair.
in a mountain range. And it's been snowing and there's still blizzards.
Okay.
It's winter. I mean, but it's like late winter, but it's almost spring, but it's still a mountain.
Yeah, you're right.
Mm-hmm. And they're in a white plane.
A white plane.
Racist.
Why are planes white?
Racist.
That
I don't
makes
know. It's
sense.
probably about like reflection or something. I don't know. I'm not an engineer.
I'm not a
No one's-
military man. It's a military plane.
I was gonna say I just work for one, and I was like, I don't work for a man. I think I do actually. Anyway, so eventually they noticed that the sun would melt the top layer of snow every morning. And so they found sheets of a thin aluminum in the chairs, and they would use those sheets to make little basins, and they would put the snow in there. And so when the sun came in, all the snow in those little aluminum basins would melt, and they could pour it into bottles and drink
That's
it throughout the
smart.
day.
That's
Mhm.
real
So
smart.
smart. I love that for them.
Innovation, creativity. Yeah, I loved it for them. And like, imagine
I
there's
mean,
so much.
really using your resources there. I mean, the plane's already in pieces. I mean, you may as well use what's there. You know what I mean? Like what you have to
What are you
Did
gonna
they
or
do?
set the
whatever.
chairs on
Yeah.
fire? That would be
Lose your
smart.
that would be smart. The styrofoam.
Have to pay the military back for their plane. You remember those chairs? Yeah.
Your pilots suck monkey dick. They're the reason we're in this in the first place.
No, it's not their fault. It is, I feel like they would have, if they would have taken them back, they would have been pissed about it. If they would have taken them home, this was a lose-lose situation for the pilots.
Yeah.
Lose,
They were
lose,
getting
dead.
bullied by children.
Yeah, they were getting bullied.
Well, maybe they should have better self-esteem.
Okay, focus. We're on to the hunger.
Okay.
They
Yay,
should
my
have
favorite.
better self-esteem. Okay.
Children are scary though. I get it. Like teenagers, I don't make eye contact with them.
They should have had a mom drive the plane. Cause she would real quick been like, nope, we're circling back since y'all want to act a fool.
The
And
wind
then
is winding.
everyone,
I'm not doing
yeah,
this.
I don't trust it. And everyone would have survived.
But also, Nando's mom was there and she didn't say anything. But also, if I was on the plane, I wouldn't, and then I was just a passenger, I would be like, I'm not going to jeer at the pilots. I'm going to let them make the safest decision
Oh,
for
They
us
yeah.
as a
didn't do that
people.
clearly.
I didn't do that because
No,
I wasn't
they
on the
didn't
plane.
do that. They didn't
Yeah.
make the safest choice.
Mm-mm.
They listened to the
Except yes.
children.
And look
Peer
what
pressure.
that's.
This is why we
This
don't
is
listen to children.
this is why you don't fall into peer pressure.
Jot that down. You end up eating your friends.
Yeah.
Well, shit.
Life lessons for the future children. Don't fall into peer pressure.
You'll
You
eat your
might eat your
friends.
friends.
It has to have the thumbs up so that you know it's legit. Okay.
I have a
So,
side note in a minute.
no, go ahead. Let's do that before we get sad again.
Would you ever eat human if it was attained consensually, like, ethically? I know you're a vegetarian. I would eat a human if it was ethical, like ethically obtained.
I'm sure this question will come up in our cannibalism killers episode for
Yes.
future. Foreshadowing. Um, I don't know. I don't know because I think the meat would hurt my tummy, and that's a risk I'm not willing to take.
I don't know if
Not
I could
even
do
just
it.
A little
like what if
chunk.
it was just like a little
Maybe
piece?
is it messed up? I feel like if it depends on the person that I'm eating,
That matters too, though.
I
Yeah.
feel like it matters.
Yeah,
Like
it
if it was
matters.
like a chunk of Evan's leg, like I'd eat that. But like not
Yeah.
a stranger. I don't want eating a stranger.
Like let's say for what if I lost my leg, like it was amputated, so they had it on ice because they thought they could reattach it, but they didn't. And so I was like, let's cook it up. And was like, let's have a leg party.
You know what? I feel like I would eat it. Because I would be like, Nev thought of me when she saw her body part and was gonna feed it to people, and that feels intimate.
Right? But I would
And
also want to have somebody who knew how to cook human because I feel like you wouldn't want to waste that.
how
You
do
want
you how do you find that?
well, there's places that eat human. I don't know.
Wait, no, we have to ask Christina. I can't be the only one talking
Yeah,
about
you
eating
got to
my
answer
friends.
this. Would you eat my amputated leg, Christina?
I don't think I could.
That's
I
valid.
don't think I
That's fair.
could. Well, and I think a lot of it too, and I'm not just saying to you, but like how people view how we eat anything nowadays, right? Is we look so deep into like where things are coming from, how like especially with like even meat products now, it's like what is going into the animals. And
Hmm.
so if you think about a human, you're thinking about honestly, like you can go so in depth with it because it's like
You don't think I
how
take
was
care of
their
my body?
lifestyle, or you know what I mean? Like if they're heavily medicated or like, you know what I mean? Because like I'm
Like
sure
if I
it
ate
would
Karina, would
affect
it be an edible essentially? Probably.
Yes.
like
You're saying
it's because
so
like I
Karina.
mean, what if you got someone who was like a drunk, you know what I mean? Or like didn't that ate like crap.
They're brined already.
Yeah, exactly. It's
They're
like wagyu.
flavored.
I
Wagyu.
don't think I could. Ooh. I don't think I could do it.
Wagyu.
Wagyu.
I can't. I just
I think that's valid.
I
You're
love
allowed
asking
to
people that
not
question.
but
eat your
also I
friends.
feel like and I'm just saying because like for Nev, it's like there's someone out there that knows how to do it. Those people are probably in the jungle, Nev, or they're
You
just
think,
open
but not
firing.
always.
That's
For
true.
killer
Yeah.
cannibals.
We will talk about this again. We will.
I'm just saying.
Speaking of
Yeah.
cannibalism, back to the plane thing. Early on, hunger was not as much a priority as thirst was.
Fair.
They were in shock, they were cold, they were depressed, and they weren't very hungry. But their rations were dwindling. So Nando says that one day they were down to their last ration, the last thing that they were, that from what they had found to eat. And he looked down at the single chocolate covered peanut cradled in my palm. And this was the last morsel of food I would be given, and I wanted to make it last. On the first day, I sucked the chocolate off the peanut, and on the second day, I carefully separated the peanut halves, slipped one back into my pocket, and the other in my mouth, where I sucked on it for hours, only to nibble now and then. I finally nibbled that peanut down to nothing. Then there was nothing left at all. That's it. That's the food. You're done. And you're on the side of a mountain. I know, I told you we'd get sad again.
Yeah, I was gonna say hearing that really hurt my heart.
I know. And then you know what's really sad? My favorite candy is chocolate covered peanuts. So I took it real personal. It's very sad. The caloric needs for a climber scaling the mountains could be almost 15,000 calories a day to maintain current body weight.
Yeah.
Just for
That's
survival,
crazy.
just for living. Since the crash, they had only had a few hundred calories a day, and now they were down to zero. They used to be sturdy, vigorous young men, and now most had grown thin and drawn. Starving, with a hunger that only grew, they searched for anything edible.
How many days by this time?
I don't, it hasn't been that long. I want to say it's maybe been a little bit longer than a week, so maybe let's go with like 7. No, it's been at least 8 days because day 8, Susie died.
Mm,
I think it's day 8. Yep, day 8, Susie died.
mm.
So it's been, I want to say 8 or 9 days.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So they searched the plane for crumbs and morsels, and they ate the strips of leather from the luggage. They ripped out seat cushions, hoping to find straw and only finding foam. Disappointing.
Very disappointing.
Their minds would not rest, and their thoughts were consumed by food and where to find it. There was nothing here but aluminum, plastic, ice, and rock. But of course, there was food on the mountain, guys. There was meat. Plenty of it, all in easy reach. As Nando stood near the bodies of the dead lying outside the fuselage under a layer of frost, he was puzzled that despite the compulsive need to find anything edible, he had ignored the obvious presence of the only edible object within 100 miles. But some lines the mind is hesitant to cross. My
It's
gaze
nicely
fell.
refrigerated.
It is. It's good for now.
It's not spoiled right now.
No. My gaze fell on the slowly healing wound of a boy lying near me. The center of the wound was moist and raw. There was a crust of dried blood at the edges. I could not stop looking at that crust, and as I smelled the faint blood scent in the air, I felt my appetite rising. Then I looked up and met the gaze of the other boys who had also been staring at the wound. I couldn't deny that I had looked at human flesh and recognized it as food.
But he felt shame too. There's probably a layer of shame.
I'm sure there's some. Because you're looking at your friends. It's like me looking at Christina and being like,
Ribba.
no, if you look like one of those flies, and the flies are like,
Yeah, with his legs.
I'm prepping. So eventually, Nando and a few of the other survivors brought up the idea to the others. They were hungry and there was food available. With rescue nowhere in sight, what was the other option? Liliana spoke up after a long silence when that idea was presented. I could never do that. And soon
Okay,
the
bitch,
others,
die.
I mean, basically. Christina, Christina's pointing at herself. It's her, guys.
Me,
You
I
could
don't do
never do
such
that.
things.
You know what? But until we are on the mountain, we do not know.
Yeah, that's very
I
true.
do. I would eat.
Nev, oh, I'm down. You're
I
still
can't
alive.
imagine Nev being like, Christina, eat this.
You're
You
gonna,
have to
you know
live.
what?
Yeah.
1,000%, Nev. I can like envision this as if we've lived it already. Like you 100% would be like, do you want to die? You're gonna die.
Yep. Yep.
You're gonna
I'm not
die if
gonna
you don't
let you
eat this.
die. So you'll either eat it or I'm gonna shove it down your throat.
Or I'm gonna eat you when you die because you haven't eaten anything. Probably you would shove it down her throat.
Oh yeah. Christina, I love her. She'd get it shoved down her throat.
Okay. Yeah, Tina, take it.
I guess that's the only way to take it.
I mean, that's the only way Nev is allowing. So soon the others spoke up too with their worries. Could God forgive such a thing? Eating your
Yes.
friend? A few, including Liliana, refused to consider eating the human meat. However, they did not attempt to stop the others.
That's good on them.
Yeah, imagine I'd be pissed. I would eat you first.
Yep.
Who is brave enough to cut the flesh from a friend? Asked
I'll do it for you.
Pancho. Nev's already out there. She's been out there. One of the guys is gone because she already ate him.
As long as they're already dead, I'm not gonna be killing my friends, but like
Roberto and Gustavo agreed to go out and make the cuts. But before they left, everyone joined hands and pledged that if any of us died, like here the oh my God, if any of us died here, that the rest would have permission to use our bodies for food, which I think is nice because now you
I
already
love that.
know, yeah, that everyone is agreeing. When I die, you can eat me. Fresh
Yes.
meats. I have the meats.
I have the mooch.
The boys searched for glass. They had decided to eat the meat available and made the promise that if they died, oh yes, that's what we talked about. They found some shards and made their way to out, or some glass shards, and made their way out to the graves where they had buried their dead. They came back with small pieces of flesh. Nando remembers that it was gray and white, hard as wood and very cold. I found
They're
myself,
not even gonna put it in a fire?
nope, I'm just gonna eat it. But if you've already burnt all your fire stuff,
The cushions and everything?
Ned, what about the cushions? This is like your only concern. I love this for you. This is your hyperfixation in this whole story for the rest of the story. Well, if you would have burned the cushions, we wouldn't be in this situation. Okay? That's you right now. Ugh. Anyway, am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong.
Anyway, I found myself slow to lift the meat to my lips. I avoided meeting anyone's gaze. But also, I don't think I could do it. I don't think I could look at my friend and be like,
That's so intimate. Stare at each other while you're putting your friend in your mouth.
"Ugh, that could be taken so many places. Oh my God. But also, yeah, it's very, regardless of what you're doing, it's very intimate.
I'm not making eye contact with you. That's for sure.
Whew. No, we're not making eye contact.
Everyone go to their shame corner.
Ugh. Some were sitting like me with the meat in their hands, summoning strength. But eventually, Nando found the courage to eat it. It had no
What it tastes
taste.
like, Nando.
It had no taste, but it's also frozen.
Yeah.
There, so I'm sure
You could
you know,
pretend it's ice cream then. It's all a mind trick. Pretend.
it's still meat. I chewed once or twice, then forced myself to swallow it.
Well, that's your issue.
You should have eaten more.
You should have chewed more, silly
Oh,
goose.
oh.
No.
Stop making us chew. Just take it and let us get it over with. Ugh.
You could pretend it's whale blubber on
I
the
love that you
mountains in
think
the
that
end.
makes it more appetizing. It doesn't. It's almost worse, I think. That would be worse for me anyway. It's disgusting. Blubber. Nothing but a nice. I respect the indigenous peoples and their meals, but I couldn't eat it because I
It's
know
because you
some of
never
them are.
grew up on it.
Yeah, exactly. But that I'm still not gonna eat it. Mm. My favorite meal, blubber. Let me finish real fast. So the little they ate was enough to calm their minds and keep them from like consistently thinking about it, but they were always hungry. And then that's
They
it.
had, what was that one thing? I had an appetite that only hands could satisfy.
That literally was it, except that not even the hands would satisfy the hunger. But at that point, like nothing is going to fill you
No.
unless, you know. So, yeah, that is where we're going to end our story for today. I'm still taking notes and still doing the thing. So, I will post, keep a lookout for our second part of the Mountain Crash series coming out in 2 weeks. What did y'all think?
I'm
That
shocked
I
that
feel like
Christina
it
wouldn't eat meat.
is it because I come from the jungle?
Yeah.
Or I don't
No.
come from the jungle, but my my
I
my
bet your mom
people
would
come
eat
from
a
the jungle.
human if she had to.
I don't
I
even
think
know if
she
she could
would.
eat
Amy?
a dog.
Definitely. Amy? She would eat a dog, you said?
No, I don't think she would.
Also,
A human, I
unrelated,
could see.
my trash sangria is actually really good. It feels real, like, it feels real trashy, but it tastes delicious.
That's the best kind.
I think your mom would eat a person.
I could see it. If she didn't have any other choice,
I think she would.
she would offer to cook it because she's a great cook.
She would, though.
I would trust Amy.
I trust Amy. Trust in Amy. As always, thank you for joining us on another episode of Sip and Saga Society. If you have any histories, mysteries, or stories you think you should be told, you should be told. Feel free to DM us on Instagram and Facebook at sipandsaga_society or visit our website at sipandsaga.com. Pretty soon, I'm going to be adding all the blogs, so I will have the resources and some photos for each of our episodes that will be available to anybody that goes to our blog and looks at it. So if you're listening to us, I will hopefully have those up the same day that the new episode comes out, and that way you can keep up with the photos if there are some, or look at whatever is important or I thought was important to go with that. Or if you have any drinks that you think we should be recommended, please let us know. I'm always down to try something new. So, anyway, thanks guys for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.